And let me tell you, folks, if you don't subscribe to the Patreon audio version where you get the pre-show, then you don't know why Joss Whedon isn't Shakespeare. And there's just no explaining it.
First of all, they're two different people.
Are they?
Right.
Do we have evidence of that?
I guess, but the thing is, a lot of Shakespeare's works were being performed before Joss Whedon was born.
I have these 15 points that show that Joss Whedon could be Shakespeare.
Listen, it does seem like the science suggests that they are, should we say were or are?
Aliens.
Were not alive at the same time, because one of them is still alive. So
yeah, I guess you say were because one of them was and the other is.
Yeah. So they
or
weren't
if you want to be
alive
non-temporal, you say are. Like I don't privilege a particular point in time. I'm not a time snot.
Right. So, yeah, I understand we shouldn't trust experts, but the science does suggest that they are not the same person.
We should trust experts. I think the problem is sometimes people say they're experts when they're not.
Well, the thing is, we don't know. The science is settled now, but, you know, at some point we might discover things like Time Lords and other...
Yeah. That's not trusting the experts. That's just having a healthy skepticism about what our confidence levels in things are, which is called science.
Right. So
the whole thing, the whole problem with all discourse is people wanting to like, just tell me what's right and what's wrong. And the fact of the matter is, like, we only have probability levels on all of that.
You know, I hear
if you say it's 95% probable and then the 5% plays out, that doesn't mean you were stupid. That just means that's why we said 95 and not 100.
Yeah, I hear you saying stuff, but all I understand is there's a possibility that Joss Whedon and William Shakespeare are
it's like you're saying there's a chance.
So, you know, I'm just gonna go with that.
Zoe brings bacon, says you guys are experts and I trust you. Big mistake.
Well, Zoe, thank you. And also, thank you for the bacon.
And the coffee. Zoe is always bringing hot coffee into the IRC chat. But you can laugh.
I can't. Coffee. Wish I could drink coffee, but I can't. Everyone talks about it in such a reverent tone.
Why can't you drink it?
Because it gives me a horrible stomach ache.
No.
Yeah, I wouldn't drink it either then if I were you.
Yeah, you think?
Well, so if we want to be exact, you actually can. It's just that it's painful, so you don't. I mean, physically, it's possible for you to drink coffee.
I mean, why should we avoid pedantry? It's not what we do here.
That would be a great title for the episode, for the post show.
Yeah.
If we did title post show, pre-shows.
Why avoid pedantry?
I am, after all, French. Oh, controls. At some point, Roger Chang is going to require and
I already gave it to him.
Oh, all right, fine.
I'm all over it today.
Chill. Jeez.
Boom.
Tom. Wow.
See, you're French and I'm American. I aggressively already did it and overachieved. All right.
Feels like an episode of Perfect Strangers.
Roger's Roger.
Yeah, always.
Can't be anything else. Shall we then?
Let's.
Here we go. Oops. Here we go again.
Daily Tech News Show is powered by its listeners, not outside organizations. If you get value from the show, consider giving a little back. As little as $1 a month keeps great tech news and analysis coming your way commercial-free. Find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, August 29th, 2017. I'm Tom Merritt, Patrick Beja alongside to bring you what's happening, help you understand the world of technology. Thank you for joining us, Patrick.
I am honored and happy to be allowed to join you, Tom.
Well, thank not only me, but our producer, Roger Chang, who is here as well to make sure this all goes swimmingly. Thank you, Roger.
You're welcome.
And that's it for the show, everybody. Have a great time. No. We're gonna talk about Google's new augmented reality announcement and use that as an opportunity to talk about where are we with augmented reality right now, because Microsoft had a big announcement yesterday. Apple, of course, had an announcement at WWDC. So augmented reality table setting is done. Now it's just time to see what y'all are into.
I'd even say things might have changed from 6 months or a year ago in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's start with a few tech things you should know. YouTube launched a new logo that puts the YouTube play button before the words YouTube instead of having the big red splotch over the word tube. YouTube also launched the ability to swipe left or right to move through recommended videos and the ability to speed up or slow down playback on mobile.
Nintendo announced it will wind down several Wii U services, including the Miiverse social network, on November 8th. The company will provide a way for users to download their own posts via the Miiverse web interface. The TV and Wii U chat app will be shut down.
So those two people with Wii U still...
That sound you just made... almost nobody made in the world, because obviously they didn't sell a lot of Wii U's, although it was a very interesting console. Well, no, it had great games. But yeah, they're making room basically in their bandwidth to work on stuff for their very successful follow-up to the Wii U, the Switch.
Yeah, they would like you to switch. Now, here are some top stories. Amazon announced support for multi-room music on the Amazon Echo Tuesday. And in fact, the Amazon Echo is kind of sold out. So people are like, hey, is there a new Amazon Echo model coming out? Anyway, though, users can now tell one Echo to play music on an Echo located in another room, or even have the same songs play on multiple Echoes. At launch, this feature works with Amazon Music, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and Pandora, but it should work with Spotify and SiriusXM soon. Amazon announced a multi-room music SDK for third-party device makers, so people who put Amazon Voice Services in their own devices. That's coming, so they'll be able to do the same thing starting early next year. And an API is rolling out to let third parties use Amazon Voice Services to control music playback. Amazon says it has been working with Sonos, Bose, and Samsung on this API. If you remember, Sonos revealed plans for a voice-controlled speaker in an FCC filing, and they have now scheduled an announcement for October 4th. It's more than a month away, but sounds like we're going to get a voice-activated Sonos speaker that works with Amazon Voice Services.
That seems like Amazon is ready to take over the entire market. I mean, I know everyone is coming up with their own, what's it even called? What's the device?
Smart speaker, I think is, right? Yeah, the one I prefer these days.
We've heard rumors about Samsung having a smart speaker as well. And they have such an advance. Amazon,
it wasn't a rumor. It's not a rumor anymore. He actually said it on the record at the Unboxed event. He said, yeah, we're working on a smart speaker.
And that might be an Alexa smart speaker. So Amazon already has such a significant advance over everyone in the market, namely Apple and Google, that this might help them expand their lead.
Kind of reminds me of what they did with Kindle, where they put out Kindle devices, but then they put their apps out on a bunch of other platforms so that if you didn't want a device, you could still buy your Kindle books. So now almost all people buy ebooks through Kindle because of that.
Well, the Wall Street Journal says its sources say Apple and movie studios have been having difficulty agreeing on the price of 4K movies to be sold in Apple's iTunes store. Apple supposedly wants 4K movies to sell for $20, which is the top price for current HD releases. The studios would like a price point of $25 to $30.
Apple always picks fights on prices. And I don't know that it's exactly why you think it is. I mean, part of it is that they think they can make more by having a smaller price, that they'll sell more, but they don't care so much about making money off the stuff. They want people to buy their new device. So if it's true that Apple is coming out with a new 4K version of the Apple TV, they're way more concerned with selling those than they are with selling the individual movies. So they want a nice, easy $20 price point. That's something that fits nicely in your head. $30 sounds expensive, but $30 or $35 is what you'd pay right now in the few places that you can buy a 4K movie. So, of course, the studios very reasonably want to keep it there.
It is, it's all a question of how the market is moving, of course. I've done a very quick and informal survey of my followers, whether or not they had actually, I really should say UHD TV, because 4K is a little bit bigger. I've been reprimanded about that by a few people. We are currently at about 25%, let's say, by Christmas, of people who either own, that's about 20%, or plan on buying a 4K UHD TV. And that's within a very geeky community, so I suspect it's obviously a lot higher than in the general population. But I think when the population is a little bit smaller, you can milk them for much higher prices because they're hungry for content. When there is a little bit more, and I think we might be starting to reaching that point, I think the prices have to start coming down, because if they don't, people are a little bit frustrated and outraged. And if they are, I don't know that they're going to be outraged at the studios when they go to iTunes and see a $30 bucks price point for a movie that they might even already own in HD, and maybe it's a movie that they've already purchased previously in other formats, and they see a $30 price point. They might say, "Apple, that's BS," and I think the
way this is supposed to work is, I'm a movie maker. I sell my movies wholesale to the digital distributors at my price point, and then they can mark them up as they please, and they'll decide what their profit is. But everybody wants to control the perception. Everybody wants to really slice that profit margin as fine as possible. And it's certainly understandable. So the studios think, well, we don't want to devalue this, because if you sell it at $20 on Apple, then we're going to have to sell it at $20 everywhere else. So we don't want to undercut ourselves that way. And of course, Apple is thinking what you just said. People are going to blame us for the price. Let's keep it lower. We'll sell a lot of these if people look at it and go, oh, well, that's the same as an HD version. So yeah, sure, why not?
And they can sell it again, which is a nice. Yeah. I would think.
I mean, I actually would be fine with $25 or $30 if you also add the ability to upgrade the one I already own. So I have Guardians of the Galaxy 1. If you say, hey, you can get a 4K version of that for $5 more, just add it on, then sure. Then when you buy it fresh, it's $25 or $30. But when you buy something that you already have, you just pay the difference. That would be cool.
Yeah, I still think 25, maybe 30 is really a bit expensive.
And even if the studios win this, it's not going to stay there. You're absolutely right.
Sure. Yeah. Just one last little thing to mention about this fight, quote unquote. Historically, the content creators have had a relatively poor track record at the content creator. The copyright holders have had a relatively poor track record at understanding customers' expectations. We've seen this with DRM, with music streaming and stuff like that. So, I would maybe be on the side of the technology companies to understand what the users actually expect and want.
Yeah. Drew Nielsen says that TV manufacturers releasing 4K TVs before the spec was finalized. People refer to 4K because that's what they learned first, instead of referring to Ultra HD Premium, which is the name of the certification and includes HDR. I say 4K and HDR because those are the two different things. You can have 4K with HDR, or you can have 4K without. I don't say Ultra HD because to me that feels just like a marketing term for something that actually confuses the issue.
So the thing is, 4K is actually a higher resolution than UHD, just by a few pixels, but that's what they use in production. Yes, it is. And it's actually what they use in production, and that's how they, in cinema, and that's how they film from, I say yes very confidently, I'm 95% sure. And that so it's actually a different resolution, not by a lot, but it is. So that's
I thought it was just a rounding thing for 4K, to be honest.
It isn't. That's what I thought as well, but turns out it isn't.
So if you say Ultra HD and you say HDR and you say 4K, you're saying three different things.
Yes.
Uber announced it will stop its practice of tracking user location after a trip ends with an update to the iOS app this week, followed by the Android app after that. Uber also paid a $3.72 million fine to the Philippines and granted $5.87 million in financial assistance to Philippine drivers in order to resume operations in that country. And Uber rolled out a free insurance program for more than 450,000 registered drivers in India. Now, they have a brand new CEO. He's talked about how he never sought this job, but it was too good of an opportunity to pass up, and he's going to do all these great things, which is all the things that you would expect him to say as a brand new CEO of Uber. But they are, three moves in a 24-hour period to say, let's fix a few things here.
I mean, all of these are interesting. The one that I wonder about is the fact that they're not going to be tracking people after they leave the app. And I wonder if it is, as some journalists have speculated, linked to the change in iOS 11, where people can decide whether or not the app can use your location only while you're using it, or all the time. But not only that, it also displays a little blue bar on top of the screen when the app is using your location. So it would have made that use of their user's location a lot more visible. And it feels like that is a controversy waiting to happen as people realize that Uber is still tracking them. Even though they have agreed to it, people actually realize that Uber is still tracking them after, they're done with the service.
Well, and Uber said, we're just doing it to improve our service because we want to know where people go after they're dropped off so that we can pick better drop-off points. And that all makes sense. But not giving me the opportunity to not participate in that part of making your service better was not okay. Because I don't know. You say you're going to stop tracking me after the first few minutes, but that's not the permission I'm giving you. So you can do whatever you want because I just gave you permission to do it. I never liked that.
Yeah, I mean, unless in the OS actually shows you very clearly that the app is still tracking you, which Apple is already doing. It's not impossible. Google would start doing it with Android as well. Anyway.
No, I mean, you can do it in Google too. It's just a matter of the fact that Uber didn't want to give you the option to not have it track you when you're not using the app. They were trying to take that away from you, and that was not okay.
Facebook announced it will block pages from advertising on Facebook it found to repeatedly share stories determined to be false. Basically, Facebook is going to block advertising for pages that have been sharing stories that are determined to be false. Pages can regain the ability to run ads by resuming sharing stories not determined to be false.
And I'll be honest, if you have a problem with this, it's all having to do with whether Facebook is accurately determining whether pages are sharing false items or not. It's all in that process they use, which they go through a lot of hoops to say it has to be reported several times. It has to be vetted by multiple organizations. These are the organizations we're using that we think are bipartisan. So the hashtag portal to hell that Justin Rubber Young talks about is all there. If you trust that Facebook is good at this, then you shouldn't have a problem with this. Like, hey, if somebody's out there spreading misinformation, they shouldn't be able to advertise their services. And Facebook's losing money, right? Because they're saying you can't spend money with us to advertise your service. So it's not like Facebook's being greedy. However, if you think Facebook is going to use this to silence someone, or you don't trust that they're actually identifying the false stories, then this is not a good policy.
And I think this is the key here. As we discussed the responsibility or who will be blamed for different issues between Apple and the movie studios, I think Facebook has done a pretty good job at trying to distance itself from the decision process, right? They are explaining very clearly, we're outsourcing the decision to other entities who should be neutral and who should have a pretty good handle on what is actually a false piece of information or not. But this is going to be the key thing in the portal to hell discussion. It's going to be whether or not they manage to actually distance themselves from that, because there are going to be stories that are determined to be false by whatever system they choose, and estimated to be not false by some people. And whether or not those people decide or understand that Facebook is responsible or those other organizations is going to make a huge headache or not for Facebook itself.
Yeah. And it is interesting. They're not saying we're taking away your revenue. We're taking away your ability to spend money with us to advertise yourself. So I just want to make sure, because I bet there's a couple people out there that didn't quite catch that still. Like, this isn't Facebook cutting off, like, you can't put ads on your pages. This is Facebook cutting off your ability to advertise those pages to others. So it doesn't benefit Facebook's bottom line. It stops the spread of information, and it all rests on the system, which, Patrick, I'll be honest, I'm a little not shocked, but I am a slight bit surprised that we haven't seen a big controversy over a story being marked false and then found to be not false. That the system so far has not caused any large amount of controversy that way.
Well, I think, in all honesty, for all of the wariness about all of this, I think Facebook is doing a pretty good job at that process.
That may be hard for people to admit, but I think you're right.
Yeah, they're choosing entities that are actually good at investigating on those stories
and requiring multiple of those entities,
exactly,
not just one of them.
Of course.
Yeah. Apple and Accenture announced a partnership to help businesses build applications for iOS. Special teams made up of Accenture and Apple employees will help the Accenture customers with software development, user interface design, stuff like that. First special team will be located in San Francisco, and the focus will include things like apps for use in devices in the lobby of a bank, either by the teller or by the customer. Augmented reality apps for use by service technicians. Apple, if you didn't know, has a lot of these enterprise-level partnerships. They have one with IBM, Deloitte, Cisco, and now with Accenture. So this is Apple's continued moves to have an enterprise presence without creating an entire enterprise division.
Yeah, it's a weird, interesting way of going about it. And it seems, you mentioned there are a few others, but they've only started to happen in the past 2-3 years, maybe. I think 2 years or so.
Pretty close. Yeah, it might be 3 or 4, but still, yeah, not for very long.
And it feels like, I don't want to say an un-Apple thing to do, but it feels a little bit strange for Apple to be doing. It's quite clever because it allows them to expand their reach in the enterprise business without themselves having to go fully into that line of work, which is very different and kind of difficult to build up from the ground up. And also, I might even venture to say I'm not sure the Apple DNA is built for that kind of work, that kind of relationship building, and that kind of project management. So maybe that's the right way to go. But it's strange to see Apple expand their activities in that field in that way.
It may feel strange from a consumer point of view, but man, is it necessary? Like, if they want to compete, they need to be out there in the same playing field as Microsoft and Dell and HP. It's just where they have to be.
I mean, traditionally, they've let the products sort of install themselves in whatever portion of the enterprise business they could get. I don't think they've actively tried to cultivate that part of their business.
Not in a long time, anyway. Yeah.
Right. And this feels a little bit Microsoft-y in a way.
Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. You can also get it on your Amazon Echo and in the Anchor app at anchor.fm. So, Google launched something called ARCore. It's an SDK. It's in preview today. You can download it along with some ARCore demos. It works with Java, OpenGL, Unity, and Unreal. It was created by the Android team and the VR group. It was not created by the ATAP team, who created Tango. And in fact, side note, Tango, not a thing anymore. They're not calling it Tango. Tango phones are just phones that are ARCore ready, although the ARCore SDK is different than the Tango SDK. They do say that the ARCore SDK should work on a Tango phone and could take advantage of stuff, but the key difference is ARCore doesn't need the depth sensors that the Tango phone uses. They can take advantage of just the camera and accelerometer that exist on current phones and be able to do their mapping and motion tracking and detecting of horizontal surfaces there. And one other thing that ARCore does well is light estimation. So if you put a virtual object in a dark room, the virtual object will have shadows on it. And if you turn on the lights, then the virtual object will have lights turn off on it. It can also sync data across multiple devices. So if you have two people in a room with ARCore running on their phones, they can share information so that everybody sees the same objects in the same place, and it helps improve accuracy. So far, the Google Pixel and the Samsung Galaxy S8 are the only certified phones for ARCore, but they say they're working with LG, Huawei, Asus, and others, so they want to spread this out to other Android devices. But in that respect, it's very similar to Daydream, the VR, the virtual reality product, in that you have to have a phone certified before it'll work on it. But one of the things that Clay Bavor, the VP of Google's Augmented and Virtuality Division, told Ars Technica is they don't want this tied to Android's update cycle. They want this to be able to work independently of the Android OS updates. So they're going slow with that. Also, there's a custom AR browser that supports the SDK and allows AR-enhanced websites to work with ARCore and even with ARKit, iOS's augmented reality. So this is a big deal. And when we compare it to yesterday's announcement from Microsoft about all their Windows mixed reality stuff coming, we now can see three big augmented reality players. And Windows mixed reality is augmented reality, but it's also VR. It's mostly VR because it's headsets. But don't forget, Microsoft has HoloLens, so they're very much into the AR. And Microsoft's plan is to make headsets that plug into a computer, but don't cost as much as an Oculus or a Vive. iOS's plan is to make stuff that works on iOS, which means your iPhone or maybe your iPad. We're splitting the difference here with Google, Patrick, where they're saying we want to be on a large number of phones. Granted, they're all Android phones, but a lot of people make Android phones, and we think that's the place where augmented reality works best. What does this landscape look like to you now that we've got some of the major players? Facebook's still kind of out there on the fringes. They're not on the fringe with Oculus Rift, but they have some other products that they have yet to announce. But we're starting to see how the table is set here.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that that table looks very different from what it did, I would say, even 2 years ago.
No, because it's got a cartoon lion sitting on it.
Exactly, and the cartoon lion is, I'm not going to go with that metaphor for too long, but basically, I think there were a couple of things that happened in a few years ago, and that kind of did a lot of damage to the idea of AR. One of them was Google Glass, and that came out too early. It was a product that wasn't finished, that didn't really work properly or the way it was intended to, and that didn't find an application. I know there are people who loved Google Glass or the idea of Google Glass. I'm going to be a little bit, definitive here and say it just didn't work out.
It worked great in the enterprise. And it's still working in the enterprise, but that's where it ended up. It's a business device, nothing else.
All right, I'm not going to launch into an argument about this, but the thing is, I really think that the technology has caught up to what the idea of AR can become. And we've seen also another attempt with Project Tango. The issue was with Project Tango, it required a number of sensors that were not standard in all of the phones that we have. Then the HoloLens arrived, and the HoloLens is also a very interesting product, but it's very particular. It requires a heavy headset. It's expensive. It has a specific set of technical requirements. And it seems that in the past few months, even maybe a little bit more, the technology has enabled a regular phone without any special sensors to create very potent AR applications. And that's what we've seen with, I mean, the HoloLens we've discussed a while ago has some really impressive applications, but it is, as I said, a specialized piece of hardware. We've seen a lot of ARKit, the Apple solution, demos that are, honestly, that surprised me because I didn't think a phone without specialized sensors could be that stable with AR. And now we're seeing the ARCore from Google, which I suspect they've been developing for a long time, semi-abandoning Tango. So what it brings us to is that we've seen AR kind of see a false start. And then VR carry the hopes of a lot of this, mixed reality, virtual reality community's hopes. And VR is certainly not going away, but it's taking a little bit more time to get established than some people had hoped. And now AR is making a comeback with technology that everyone has. So the bottom line is AR is looking like a more and more viable option for creating scenarios where you interact with objects in your surroundings than maybe even VR in the short term, at least.
I wouldn't call it a comeback because it hasn't been here for years. It's sort of like this is the first arrival for a lot of people of AR is going to be this fall when ARKit shows up on their iPhones and ARCore shows up on their Android phones. But I don't think that undermines anything that you're saying here. It's like, yeah, AR has finally arrived. I mean, it's a comeback from HoloLens and all of that. I know what you were saying.
That's what I meant,
but this is going to be the first chance that people get in a lot of ways to compare it to VR, because let's say you own a Samsung Galaxy S8, you can do a Gear VR with your Samsung Galaxy S8, and then you can do the ARCore, and you can decide which works for you. Now, Peter Bright over at Ars Technica has a really interesting article pointing out that Microsoft may be doing to itself what it has done before, which is be first into a market and not get that the market changes faster than it can. And he uses Windows Mobile as an example of that, where when Microsoft had Windows phones way back in the 90s, right? They remember the compact phones with Windows on them in the early 2000s. They were very early on, but they didn't catch on to touchscreens, and they got to touchscreens too late, and now they have virtually no Windows phone market. At all.
It's the same with tablets. They had
tablets. It's another great example. My question though is, okay, so I look at all the headsets yesterday from Windows Mixed Reality and I think, but the advantage they have is that they're a headset, right? Yeah, you have to plug it into your PC, but they're better than the Oculus Rift because you don't have to have any external sensors, but you actually can wear it and be hands-free. And then I look at ARCore and I'm like, but the advantage here is you don't have to have a computer. You don't have to have it tethered to anything. You can just hold it in your hands, but you hold it in your hands. When do we get the system that is what I want, which is something I'm wearing so that I can be hands-free and just see the augmented reality objects around me, but doesn't require me to be tethered to something?
And I think that's going to be the key.
And also doesn't make me look stupid.
Well, that is also going to be the key. That's really important, actually. We might joke about it, but I think this is absolutely essential to whether or not AR technology takes off. The demos we're seeing are incredibly impressive. I mean, honestly, until I'm taking ARKit as an example because it came a few months early, but it's kind of the same thing with ARCore. But the demos we're seeing with ARKit, I would not have believed that this was possible with a normal phone until the day before ARKit was announced. And even at the demo at the Apple event, I was skeptical. But what we've seen since then is very, very impressive. The thing is, that remains theoretical technology. I don't think it's going to have a very practical application on the phone. There are going to be gadgets, maybe a couple of apps that are fun, but I don't think it's going to be incredibly practical with just the phone. It's only half of the equation. The software part is now, it seems, very capable. But the hardware part is it cannot work without the hardware part. It's kind of, I don't want to take any example here, but if you don't manage to get a headset that doesn't look dumb and that you can actually use autonomously, I don't think this technology is actually useful. It's like a fun experiment that doesn't have any
there are
practical
things you can use it for when you're holding it in your hand,
right?
But those are greatly reduced over what you can do when it's just in your glasses, right?
Yeah,
or even in your contacts or something like that. And let's not even worry about going straight to contacts. Let's say, okay, I don't mind looking a little silly if I can do some really cool stuff. I mean, HoloLens is getting close to that, they say. And I'll be very interested in that. And Facebook says they're going to have an announcement of an untethered, non-phone based headset. But I have a feeling that's going to be more virtual reality than augmented reality.
Yeah, which is also very interesting. But then that's what those demos that we're seeing with ARKit and ARCore really tell the public. It's that those things are at least impressive as their own. They're not VR light. It's really AR allows you to do things that when you interact between computer-generated graphics and your actual surroundings, there are some interesting things that can happen that are very different from what happens.
I just had an idea. Okay, in the future where we don't look silly, we like wearing the thing, we can see augmented reality. My wife and I are sitting on the couch. We're watching the 5th Game of Thrones spinoff because this is far in the future, and I want to get up and I want to get a piece of fruit. This is don't judge me. It's a real thing that happens. I'm always like, man, I really want an apple right now. And so it's either bother her and pause or just find a scene where I think it's going to be like, okay, I know it's going to happen. I'll run over there and get it. Not with AR. With AR, I just get up and I tell the screen to follow me. And it just hangs in front of me while I go into the kitchen and grab an apple.
Yeah, but then
or an orange if you're not an apple person.
What, do you need to come back and watch it on the TV? Yeah, no, okay. I mean, yes, that would be one of the applications, I'm sure. But I lost my train of thought. It does. Yes, the other thing that is really interesting that is happening now is that the hardware requirements are much lower than they are for VR. Apparently,
I mean, arguably not. You can do Daydream and Gear VR on a Samsung Galaxy S8, but
but the thing is, for VR, you do need to render the entire surroundings. You do need 90 frames per second, otherwise you're probably going to puke.
Unless your Windows mixed reality and you're like 60's fine. 60 won't make you puke too much.
I mean, usually the accepted standard is 90 frames per second. I very much doubt that 90 frames per second is absolutely necessary in AR. And even if it is, you're just rendering part of your field of view. You're rendering the objects that you want to place in the real environment. So I suspect that the computing requirements are much lower. And now that you don't need Tangle-like sensors, you can just do it with one, probably better with 2 standard camera sensors. It seems like even on the hardware side, it's a lot more feasible and maybe a lot easier to put all this together on something that looks a little bit more like glasses and that has decent autonomy for use. So,
very true. Well, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com and join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. Real quickly before we're out of here, yesterday Jeff asked about resources to help his 5-year-old learn to code games. Roger mentioned yo-yo games. And we got a bunch more good suggestions from you all. Thank you for sending them. I forwarded everybody's emails along to Jeff. I'll read out just a few of the resources that people mentioned. Alice.org, codeacademy.com. A bunch of people mentioned Scratch from MIT. That's at scratch.mit.edu. This is apparently a super easy for first-time programmers as it turns programming into Legos. This is only good for learning the basics of logic, though. And then Android apps at appinventor.mit.edu. Alan pointed out there's a series of graphic novels called Secret Coders by Jean Lewin Yang. They have puzzles that teach programming concepts at secret-coders.com. And at least one game design specific YouTube channel was recommended by Sean called Extra Credits with a Z at youtube.com/user/extra credits. Advice from Sean too is that you should always start small and work your way up. Games are very complex and you can quickly get burned out if you're trying to build a huge system by yourself. Also be ready to scrap ideas that aren't working. You almost always throw out your redesign, your first draft of a program or game. You almost always throw out or redesign your first draft of a program or game, but that's a good thing because it helps you learn. So thank you, everybody, for pitching in with all of those resources. We'll have them linked in the show notes as well. And Patrick Beja, thank you, as always. What you got going on to tell folks about?
I guess I would talk about the Phileas Club, which is a show I do every month or so. We get people from different countries, and we talk about the news that's been happening in the different countries, and talk about how everyone has been hearing about and the media has been reporting about and how they understand those different pieces of news. So in the latest episode we recorded only a few days ago, we talked about French tax on wealth, which was an interesting one. Constitutional crisis in Australia, for reasons that might surprise you. The pilgrimage to Mecca, which is starting soon, with the infrastructure that goes with it and the commercial opportunities that might go with it as well. And of course, we talked about the events in Charlottesville, along with a conservative friend of mine who told us what he thought about it. And you might think, well, this show seems interesting, but the real thing that will convince you is that my father-in-law says, so far you're best, congratulations.
Wow. So that's your splash quote on the album art now?
Basically, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Go check it out, folks. It's really good. Really good, honest conversation between Tony and Patrick about Charlottesville this week that I think will help all of us understand things a little better. Frenchspin.com. And thanks to everybody who gives a little value back to this show for the value they get from the show. Where we were at 7, we're 5 more patrons than we had last month right now. But our goal is always to get at least one more. So thank you to everybody who sticks with us and says, hey, you know what? I like this show. I want to get some things back. We do offer some perks. If you support the show at even the $1 a month level, you get access to an RSS feed that has an exclusive audio pre-show. Today, Patrick and I discussed which modern filmmaker or television person is the modern Shakespeare. Roger and Patrick and I all have different ideas. That's in there right now in your RSS feed if you just listen to the regular version today at patreon.com/DTNS. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Scott Johnson. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Good show.
It was fun.
That was fun. What should we call it? If we were to call this show something, I'd call it good. But is that good enough?
Maybe we should call it great.
The best show.
The best show ever. Google flexes its ARCore. Get it? ARCore. Facebook adds a portal to hell. Nintendo's killing Wii U softly. Nintendo would like you to switch. Begun the AR wars. I haven't seen one of those in a while. 4K magic. You say UHD, and I say 4K. Accenture-ated Apple apps. What's AR good for? It's at its core, Lions. Wait, what?
So you haven't pre-read these, is what you're saying?
No, because I'm following the show. I'm sorry. Amazon echoes an echo. Uber drives for more privacy. I like that one. Uber pivots, promises Uber privacy. Hashtag portal to hell. I think we've done those before, though.
Yeah, we have done a lot of those.
I like the one that is number 4 right now. It shut up. But
Oh, that
Google
has 4
flexes
votes.
its ARCore.
no, the one that's fourth in the
Oh,
list.
not Patrick is great.
Yeah, I think that one really captured the essence of the episode. Zoe Brings Bacon has a very strong understanding of what's important in this show, and
Ooh, AR accommodating reality by KV.
I like one that's it's only got 1 vote now, but it's down there below Tom Likes Fruit.
Are we
look,
there
It's
yet?
got 2 votes now.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
3! Look at that! It's amazing. Actually, I'm sorry, but I might be or be soon great, and you might think that I'm gonna leave to go play Destiny 2, the beta on PC, but actually I do have some laundry to take care of,
Dude.
and
See, if you had augmented reality glasses, you wouldn't have to choose. You could just play it while you were doing your laundry.
No, but see that's I think that's a fallacy. You can only really concentrate on one thing at a time.
It's a fun fallacy, though.
I can't
What
wait
you need
for
to
the
do is
future.
afford someone to play the game for you while you do chores.
Well, that's called YouTube.
That's a machine intelligence.
Yeah.
How about having the machine fold your laundry while you play? That would be a much better way of dividing the labor.
Oh, by the way, before you go, and I know you got to go. I'll make this real quick. So just to clarify what Patrick was saying in the show, because he's absolutely right. UHD is 3840 by 2160, which is what I was saying about rounding up. And that's generally what people call 4K. But there's also UW 4K, which is an ultra wide standard that's 3840 by 1600. And then you were mentioning DCI 4K, not by name, but that's the video production industry standard that's actually 4K. It's 4096 by 2160.
Exactly.
And that's probably the truer definition because it is exactly 4 times.
I have always thought of 3840 when I said 4K because that's always been the consumer level one.
Everyone does, except there were a few Sony and I think Panasonic TVs that were actual 4K, like
actually supported DCI.
4096, yeah. At some point, and now they've disappeared.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's very much in well, actually,
I just wanted to give you credit where credit was due. You were absolutely right.
Thank you.
Go with the DCI.
All right. Go and clean your clothes.
Clean your clothes, play your games. Yeah.
Bye.
All right. So what do we pick? Google flexes its ARCore.
Hold on a second. Yeah, I kind of like that one. That's the top vote getter still.
Yep.
Tom, Merritt, Patrick, Beja, and Roger Chang. All right. Google flexes its core. It's ARCore.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to upgrade my TV for a while. I mean, I know why they're pushing it because they want people to upgrade their TV, but
I upgraded my TV because it died. That is the only reason I upgraded it.
That's the only reason I moved up, and I kid you not.
It blew a resistor, and the last time I had a TV blow a resistor, I fixed it myself, and it didn't
ever the same.
It just wasn't worth it, and I ended up replacing it not that long afterwards. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity to upgrade. I know it's not doesn't make the most financial sense, but now I'll have, a 4K TV and a UHD TV. And I'm glad I did it. I don't regret it. And I feel like I'll have this TV till it dies as well. Hopefully that'll be a long time because that Panasonic I had lasted 10 years.
I had a crappy little 32-inch Westinghouse.
Yeah.
Was it Westinghouse or a Sharp 32-inch TV?
I have a 32-inch, well, it might be 35, but anyway, it's 30-plus inch Samsung in my bedroom. That thing's 12 years old now. It's been around forever.
I was watching it, and I was watching one of the Fast and Furious movies, and then I'm not sure resistor, but something on it blew, and it made this weird effect where, it made this blue effect, wavy kind of dream effect, all converging toward the middle. So it's like, whoa, that's a really cool transition. And then I realized
and then it didn't stop.
TV's dead.
Okay, that was a cool transition, but you could lose it now.
Where's the rest of my picture? I was really sad. It's like, I gotta get a new TV. But TVs aren't one of those things I upgrade a lot. Part of it is because they're very bulky. Even if you get a super
Yeah.
thin TV.
I mean, it's not just the expense. That's part of it, but it's also the having to get rid of the old one.
Well, if you think of a comparably expensive item like a phone, people generally won't hesitate as much because, it's something that's very innocuous and small.
You could throw it in a drawer. I mean, that's not what you should do with it, but you can. You can't throw an old television in a drawer.
No, it's furniture. It's
Yeah.
one of those pieces of electronic that's furniture, like speakers. We have a EMW tonight.
Yes, we do. What will we talk about?
So many things.
Who knows what we'll talk about? Did you know that there's an East Meets West Canada podcast?
Wait, what?
Somebody in the analyst Slack found it when they were looking for East Meets West on Google Play.
Yes, Canada.
And it's the same concept. Two guys just talking about whatever they want.
Jerks. wait, when was the first step? Oh, wait a minute. The first episode was, and they used their weird dating system of putting the day, month, and then year.
You mean the standard one that the rest of the world uses? Yeah, they did.
Is it the rest of the world use the year, month, day?
Well, you may be right about that.
But whatever. They started in 2014. All right, the last month of 2014.
So we definitely predate them by 9 years. I say
one of
we
these-
just invite them on.
It's places in travel. Rob's away in New York after a sizable break. Why don't we go to Canada and fight them physically?
I don't want to fight them. Why do you want to fight them?
Sit down to a big stack of pancakes at the end.
I'll go. I'd rather jump right to the pancakes. That part sounds good. Now
Because
you're talking sense.
fellowship can't exist without some sort of stress, some sort of adversity to overcome.
Is that true?
I don't know. That's what I learned from the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Like they were friends before, but they were really good friends after.
They went through the war together. They didn't fight each other. They had to. So what you're saying, what I think you're saying is that we need to determine a common enemy, like North meets South.
North meets South. That was the follow-up to the epic Civil War miniseries called Blue and Gray.
Yeah, probably. I'd rather not talk about the Civil War right now.
All right.
As soon as I said North meets South, I realized what I had done.
Dino Beer. There's someone named Dino Beer? Sorry, I missed him.
Dino Beer left the chat room.
Yeah. I think I clued in on the dino because I get those dino chicken nuggets for Ellie. Oh. She likes eating nuggets. She's just finally at the nugget chicken phase.
Oh, Nugget Man. Oh, Nugget Man.
Let me take your mechanically separated protein and squish it together. It's such a the euphemisms that show up like in all sorts of industries. It makes me chuckle. Mechanically separate. I mean, technically, yeah, it's mechanically separated.
I mean, that's just literally what it is. It doesn't sound better to say mechanically separated. I don't think that's a euphemism, is it? That's just what's happening. It doesn't sound particularly appetizing.
To me, it sounds very neutral. It doesn't sound unappetizing or appetizing.
Well, it is neutral, isn't it?
I don't know. It's like we cleave the flesh from the chicken, from its bones.
Yeah, but it's not the only thing. It's mechanically separated in that, like, you just take a chicken breast and you pulling it apart. Mostly, it's the meat. It's the meat that hangs on the bone afterwards.
Yeah, special process for that they don't do anymore.
It's mechanically separated. So he brings bacon. It points out mechanically separated does not sound appetizing.
Well, most bacon is
hand separated nuggets. Hand separated.
You want small batch,
batch, hand separated artisan nuggets.
There's a market for that. If someone's gonna knit beanies out of yak hair,
is that a thing?
I think it is. Is it? Maybe I'm dreaming. Yak hair beanies.
Oh, yak hair beanies. Oh, yak hair beanies.
Yak down is a very warm fiber. Why don't they just say it's hair? It's hair from a big woolly animal.
The yak down.
That was the System of a Down in high school.
It's like the beat down, the breakdown, the yak down. Well, thanks everybody for watching. We will be back tomorrow with Scott Johnson. Until then, adieu, and may the road rise to meet you.